Why are you here? Maybe because something inside you is screaming for freedom. Maybe because addiction has imprisoned you in a way nobody else understands. But what if I told you that this very force that dominates you, this uncontrollable obsession that seems to destroy you, is exactly the key that can set you free and fulfill your greatest dreams? Carl Jung spent decades studying the human psyche and discovered something revolutionary. Behind every addiction lies an unsatisfied spiritual thirst, a desperate search for something greater. What addicts you isn't the alcohol, the drug, or the behavior. It's the vital energy flowing through them, seeking a purpose, a meaning, a connection with something transcendent. In this video, I'll show you how this same intensity that consumes you today can be redirected to manifest any desire in your life. The gateway is there, waiting for you. It's not about fighting the addiction. It's about understanding the sacred force pulsing behind it. The spiritual thirst, hidden in addiction. There's a moment in every addict's life when they realize the substance isn't really what they're after. You chase the high, the numbness, the escape, but deep down something else is calling. Jung understood this better than most. He saw that when someone becomes addicted, they're not just seeking chemical relief. They're answering a call from somewhere deeper, somewhere their conscious mind hasn't learned to reach yet. This spiritual thirst isn't about religion or following any particular path. It's about the soul's desperate need for meaning in a world that often feels empty. When life loses its color, when days blur into each other without purpose, the psyche searches for anything that makes you feel alive again. The drug, the drink, the behavior becomes a crude substitute for what your spirit actually craves: transcendence, connection, wholeness. Jung noticed that many of his patients who struggled with addiction had one thing in common. They felt disconnected from something essential within themselves. This wasn't weakness or moral failure. It was a sign that their inner world was crying out for attention, for integration, for a reunion with parts of themselves they'd lost or never knew existed. Think about the intensity you feel when the craving hits. That raw, undeniable force that seems to take over everything. That's not just chemical dependency, that's life energy, what Jung called libido, but not in the sexual sense. This is your vital force, the same energy that makes artists create, that makes lovers surrender, that makes mystics seek God. It's pure, concentrated aliveness seeking an outlet. The tragedy is that addiction channels this sacred energy into a dead end. The substance promises fulfillment, but delivers only temporary relief, followed by deeper emptiness. Yet the energy itself remains pure, remains powerful, remains absolutely capable of transformation. The spiritual thirst you're experiencing through addiction is actually your psyche's way of telling you that you're meant for something more. In traditional societies, this kind of intense inner calling would have been recognized and guided. There were rituals, initiations, practices designed to help people navigate these powerful inner forces. But modern life offers no such container. So the energy that should be transforming you into who you're meant to become gets trapped in a cycle that mimics transformation without actually delivering it. When you use, there's that brief moment where everything makes sense. The anxiety quiets, the pain softens. You feel connected to something beyond your ordinary struggles. This is your spirit tasting what it actually wants, but through a distorted lens. The high is a shadow of the genuine spiritual experience your deeper self is seeking. Jung believed the psyche always moves toward wholeness. Even when it seems like you're destroying yourself, there's a hidden intelligence at work. The addiction is pointing towards something you need, something missing, something your soul knows about even if your mind doesn't. The compulsion isn't random. It's your unconscious trying to solve a problem, trying to fill a void, trying to return you to yourself. This is why simply stopping the addictive behavior often isn't enough. the spiritual thirst remains. The energy that drove the addiction is still there, still seeking, still demanding expression. Without understanding what lies beneath, without finding a true channel for this force, you're left white-knuckling through life, always on the edge of falling back into the pattern. But here's what changes everything. Once you recognize that the addiction is actually a misguided spiritual quest, you can begin to redirect that same powerful energy toward what will genuinely fulfill you. The intensity doesn't need to diminish. The passion doesn't need to die. It needs to find its rightful home, its true purpose, its sacred direction. The force that dominates you can set you free. Now that you understand the spiritual hunger driving your addiction, you can begin to see the raw power you're actually dealing with. This isn't some small character flaw or bad habit. The force moving through you is the same force that has driven humans to cross oceans, build civilizations, create masterpieces, and touch the divine. You're not weak for struggling with it. You're dealing with one of the most powerful currents in human existence. Jung spent years exploring what he called psychic energy, and he discovered something crucial. This energy is completely neutral. It doesn't care whether it builds you up or tears you down. It simply flows toward wherever you direct your attention and emotional investment. Right now it flows toward your addiction because that's where the channel has been carved deepest. But channels can be redirected. Think about how much mental space your addiction occupies. How many hours you spend thinking about it, planning for it, recovering from it, promising yourself you'll stop, then starting again. Calculate the sheer amount of focus, the obsessive attention, the emotional intensity you pour into this cycle every single day. That's an enormous amount of psychic energy, enough to transform your entire life if it flowed in a different direction. The same mechanism that makes you crave also makes you capable of incredible dedication. When you want something connected to your addiction, nothing stops you. You find ways, make excuses, overcome obstacles, push through resistance. You become resourceful, determined, single-minded. These aren't qualities you need to develop. You already have them. They're just locked into a pattern that works against you instead of for you. Jung talked about the transcendent function, the psyche's natural ability to transform one state into another. This isn't magic or wishful thinking. It's a fundamental property of consciousness itself. The energy currently manifesting as compulsion can manifest as creative drive, spiritual practice, passionate purpose. The transformation happens not by suppressing the intensity, but by giving it a new object, a worthy destination. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. Most recovery approaches ask you to fight against yourself, to resist, to say no over and over. But Jung's insight suggests something different. What if you could redirect rather than resist? What if the same force that pulls you toward destruction could pull you toward your deepest desires with equal or greater intensity? This redirection requires understanding how psychic energy actually works. It moves along established pathways in your unconscious, like water flowing through carved channels. Your addiction has carved a very deep channel. Creating new channels doesn't happen instantly, but it happens naturally when you consistently direct your attention towards something that genuinely matters to your soul. Here's where most people get stuck. They try to redirect their energy toward things that sound good, but don't actually resonate with their deeper self. They choose goals based on what they think they should want, rather than what their spirit actually craves. The energy won't flow there. It knows the difference between authentic desire and borrowed ambition. The key is finding what Jung called your personal myth, the unique path your individuation process wants to follow. When you connect with this, when you feel that pull towards something that feels deeply true to who you are, the same obsessive quality that fueled your addiction begins to serve your transformation instead. The force doesn't diminish. It finally finds its purpose. The invisible portal within obsession. Every obsession contains a doorway most people never notice. When you're trapped in the cycle, it feels like there's no way out, only deeper in. But Jung discovered something profound about the nature of psychological extremes. They contain their opposite. At the very heart of what imprisons you lies the mechanism of your liberation. Your obsession has taught you something invaluable that most people never learn. You know what it means to be completely consumed by something. You understand the totality of focus, the surrendering of everything else, the way time disappears when you're locked into that pull. This capacity for absolute absorption isn't your enemy. It's actually a rare and precious ability that spiritual seekers spend lifetimes trying to cultivate. Mystics and masters across traditions talk about one-pointed concentration, about losing yourself completely in something beyond your small self. They describe states where the boundary between you and what you're focused on dissolves entirely. Sound familiar? You've been experiencing this all along, just aimed at something that drains rather than fulfills. The portal itself remains neutral, waiting for you to step through it in a different direction. Jung understood that the unconscious communicates through symbols and symptoms. Your addiction is both. It's your psyche's way of showing you how powerful you actually are, how capable of total commitment, how able to transcend your ordinary limitations. The problem isn't the intensity. The problem is that this intensity has attached itself to something that creates a false transcendence, a temporary escape rather than a genuine transformation. Within every compulsive behavior lies a distorted image of what your soul actually wants to experience. The numbing you seek through substances reflects a legitimate need to quiet the noise of modern life and access deeper states of consciousness. The euphoria you chase mirrors the genuine joy and aliveness your spirit craves. The ritual of using echoes humanity's ancient need for sacred practices that mark transitions and create meaning. This portal, this doorway hidden in your obsession, opens wider the more you understand its true nature. You're not accessing it by fighting yourself or trying to become someone different. You're accessing it by recognizing that the mechanism already works perfectly. It's been working this whole time, just pointed at a target that can never truly satisfy what you're looking for. The shift happens when you realize you don't need to kill the obsession. You need to understand what it's been trying to give you all along. What feeling are you actually chasing? What state of being are you trying to reach? What part of yourself are you trying to access or escape? These questions matter because their answers reveal where the portal actually leads. Many who walk through this invisible doorway describe it the same way. They didn't stop wanting intensely. They didn't become moderate or balanced in some lifeless sense. They found something that called to them with the same urgency their addiction once did. But this new calling opened doors instead of closing them. The obsessive quality remained. The target transformed. Jung called this process circumambulation, walking around the center of your psyche until you find the true entry point. Your addiction has been circling something essential, something real, something that matters deeply to your soul's journey. But it's been circling from the outside, never quite touching the center. The portal invites you to stop circling and step through. This isn't metaphor or poetry. There's a practical reality here. The neural pathways that fire when you crave, when you obsess, when you surrender to compulsion, are the same pathways that activate during profound creative work, deep meditation, states of flow, moments of genuine connection. Your brain already knows how to access altered states. It's been doing it repeatedly, just through a method that ultimately harms rather than heals. When energy finds its true path, Understanding the portal is one thing. Walking through it requires something more. This is where Jung's concept of libido becomes crucial again. Remember, he saw this life energy as constantly seeking expression, constantly trying to flow somewhere meaningful. When it can't find its true path, it takes whatever route is available, even destructive ones. Your energy has been dammed up, blocked from its natural course. Imagine a river that should be flowing toward the ocean, but instead hits a wall and pools into a stagnant marsh. The water is still there, the force is still present, but it's not moving toward its destination. It just sits there, breeding problems. Your addiction is that stagnant pool. The energy hasn't disappeared. It's just trapped. What happens when you finally remove the blockage? When the dam breaks and the river remembers its course? The same water that was festering suddenly becomes a force of nature again, powerful and purposeful. This is what occurs when your psychic energy finds its true path. Everything changes, not because you've become someone new, but because what was always there finally flows freely. Jung noticed that his patients often experienced breakthroughs when they connected with what he called their personal calling or destiny. This wasn't about careers or social expectations. It was about finding the unique expression of life force that wanted to come through them specifically. When someone touched this, their entire relationship with their compulsion shifted naturally. The energy that was locked into addiction suddenly had somewhere better to go. Not through willpower or discipline, but through attraction. The true path pulls you more strongly than the false one ever did. This is the secret most recovery programs miss. They focus on restraint when they should focus on redirection through authentic desire. Think about water again. It always seeks the lowest point, always follows the path of least resistance downhill. Your psychic energy works similarly. It will flow toward whatever provides the easiest release, the quickest satisfaction. Your addiction became that easy path. But when you create a deeper channel, one that connects to something genuinely meaningful, the energy naturally begins flowing there instead. This doesn't happen overnight. The old channel is well-worn, familiar, automatic. Your entire system has organized itself around it. Creating the new path requires consistent attention and genuine connection to what matters at your core. But here's what most people don't realize. You don't have to wait until the new path is fully formed to feel relief. The moment you start digging that channel, even in small ways, the pressure begins to ease. Your desires, your real desires beneath the addiction, are like roots seeking water. They've been there all along, buried under layers of pain and distortion. When you begin clearing away what's false, when you start creating space for what's true, these roots naturally reach toward nourishment. The energy knows where it wants to go. It's been waiting for permission, for recognition, for you to stop blocking its natural course. Jung believed the psyche has an inherent wisdom, a kind of inner knowing about what it needs to become whole. Your true path isn't something you have to invent or figure out through logic. It's something you recognize when you encounter it. There's a feeling of rightness, of coming home, of finally moving in the direction you were always meant to travel. Many describe this moment of recognition as remembering rather than discovering. Like they knew all along but had forgotten, buried under years of moving in the wrong direction. The energy finding its true path feels like remembering who you actually are beneath everything that happened to you. Beneath every coping mechanism you developed, beneath the addiction that seemed to define you. The transformation. Nobody taught you. Here's what they don't tell you about transformation. It's not about becoming better, it's about becoming whole. Jung spent his career distinguishing between these two paths, and understanding the difference changes everything about how you approach your journey from addiction to fulfillment. Most of what you've heard about recovery focuses on improvement, on fixing what's broken, on making yourself acceptable according to some external standard. But Jung's approach was radically different. He believed that nothing in the psyche is truly broken. Everything, even what seems destructive, serves a purpose in the larger pattern of who you are. The transformation isn't about cutting away parts of yourself, it's about integrating them. Your addiction has been a teacher, though a harsh one. It's shown you the depths of your capacity for devotion. It's revealed how much intensity you can hold. It's demonstrated that you're capable of organizing your entire life around a single focus. These aren't character flaws to eliminate. They're powers to redirect. The transformation happens when you stop fighting against yourself and start working with the totality of who you are. Jung called this process individuation, the journey toward becoming your complete self. It's not a straight line from broken to fixed. It's a spiral that takes you through darkness and light, repeatedly visiting the same territories at deeper levels. Your addiction might have been the darkest territory, but even there, especially there, crucial parts of your wholeness were waiting to be acknowledged. This is the transformation nobody taught you, because it requires embracing what most approaches tell you to reject. Your shadow, the parts of yourself you've been told are unacceptable, contains enormous energy and potential. The same drives that manifested as addiction can manifest as passion, creativity, spiritual hunger, the relentless pursuit of truth. Nothing needs to be destroyed. Everything needs to be understood and redirected. The way forward involves a paradox. You must simultaneously accept yourself completely as you are right now, addiction and all, while also committing fully to transformation. These aren't contradictory. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation. It means seeing clearly, without the distortion of shame or denial. Only from this clear seeing can genuine change emerge. Your psyche has been trying to tell you something through your addiction. Instead of just seeing the problem, start asking what message lies beneath it. What is this compulsion protecting you from? What void is it trying to fill? What part of your authentic self has been suppressed so long that it's manifesting in this distorted way? These questions open doors that simple abstinence never can. Transformation in Jung's sense involves bringing the unconscious into consciousness. Your addiction has roots in places you haven't looked yet. Patterns inherited from your family, wounds from your past, parts of yourself you decided weren't acceptable and locked away. As these hidden elements come into the light, as you see them clearly and accept them without judgment, their power over you begins to dissolve. This process can't be rushed, but it also doesn't have to take forever. The key is genuine engagement with your inner world. Not surface-level positive thinking or affirmations, but real dialogue with the deeper layers of your psyche. Dreams become important. Symbols start mattering. You begin noticing what resonates and what doesn't, what feels alive and what feels dead. As transformation unfolds, you'll notice something unexpected. The energy you were directing toward addiction doesn't just redirect elsewhere, it actually multiplies. This is because you're no longer burning it in a closed loop that produces nothing. You're investing it in real growth, real creation, real connection. The returns compound. Life starts generating more life instead of consuming itself. From imprisonment to fulfillment. You stand now at the threshold. Behind you lies everything you've learned about the spiritual thirst driving your addiction, the tremendous force you're actually dealing with, the portal hidden in your obsession, the energy waiting to find its true path, and the transformation that integrates rather than amputates. Ahead lies the question that matters most. How do you actually live this? The shift from imprisonment to fulfillment isn't a single moment of revelation, though those moments matter. It's a daily practice of choosing to engage with your psychic energy consciously instead of letting it run on automatic. Every time you feel the pull toward your addiction, you now have a choice you didn't have before. Not the choice to resist, but the choice to ask, what is this energy actually seeking right now? Sometimes the answer will surprise you. The craving you interpreted as needing a substance might actually be your soul crying out for rest, for beauty, for honest connection, for creative expression. When you learn to decode these messages, when you start responding to the actual need instead of the habitual pattern, everything begins to shift. The addiction loses its grip not through force, but through irrelevance. Jung understood that fulfillment comes from living in alignment with your deeper self, what he called the self, with a capital S. This isn't your ego, your personality, or your learned identity. It's the organizing principle at your core, the unique pattern that wants to express through your life. Your addiction has been a detour away from this path. But now you know the detour was never random. It was your psyche's distorted attempt to lead you towards something essential. The practical work involves creating new rituals to replace the old ones. Not superficial habits, but genuine practices that feed your spirit in the ways it's been starving for. This might be time in nature, creative work that absorbs you completely, practices that quiet your mind and open your heart, relationships where you can be fully seen, pursuits that challenge you in ways that feel meaningful rather than empty. As these new channels deepen, as you consistently direct your energy toward what genuinely nourishes you, something remarkable happens. The thing Jung predicted. The symbols of your inner work start appearing in your outer life. Opportunities aligned with your true path begin emerging. People who understand what you're doing show up. Resources become available. This isn't magic. It's what naturally occurs when your energy flows coherently instead of being scattered and drained. Your desires, the real ones beneath the addiction, start manifesting. Not because you're forcing or manipulating reality, but because you're finally moving in harmony with your deeper nature. The universe responds to authenticity. When you stop pretending, stop numbing, stop hiding from yourself, when you show up fully to your own life, doors open that were always there but invisible from where you were standing before. This journey from imprisonment to fulfillment will have setbacks. Jung never promised easy answers. The old patterns will call to you, especially during difficult times, but now you understand what that call really means. It's not a sign of failure, it's your psyche testing whether you're serious about the new path, whether you'll turn back when things get hard, or whether you'll keep moving toward wholeness even through discomfort. Each time you choose consciousness over compulsion, each time you redirect that powerful energy towards something true, you're not just avoiding your addiction. You're actually fulfilling the deeper desire that was always driving it. You're answering the spiritual thirst with real water instead of salt water that makes you thirstier. You're using the force that dominated you to finally set yourself free. The irony is beautiful. What seemed like your greatest weakness was actually showing you where your greatest strength lies. The intensity of your addiction revealed the intensity of your capacity for commitment, passion, transformation. You were never broken. You were always powerful. You just needed to understand how to direct that power toward life instead of away from it. This is your moment, not someday when you're ready, not after you've figured everything out. Right now, with everything you know and everything you still don't know. The energy is already there, the portal is already open, the path is already calling. All that remains is your decision to step forward, to let the same force that imprisoned you become the force that fulfills every desire your soul has been whispering about all along. The question Jung would ask you now isn't whether you'll stop being addicted, it's what you'll become addicted to instead. Because the truth is, you were always meant to be consumed by something. That fire burning inside you, that relentless hunger, that unstoppable force. It was never the problem. It was the answer, dressed in the wrong clothes, knocking on the wrong door. So stop trying to extinguish it. Stop apologizing for its existence. Instead, ask yourself, what deserves this kind of devotion? What truth is worth this level of surrender? What dream is calling for the same intensity you've been pouring into your destruction? Your addiction showed you the depths of your power. Now it's time to show yourself the heights.